I don't have.
Order. Before we start the meeting, I want to have a moment of silence for Dave Dickout, who served the community as election warden and a firefighter for 20 years, and Tom Fallon, who served our country and our community as a Marine, as our state rep, and as a judge. Both very highly valued people in our community. So a moment of silence for them, please. Okay, the first item on our agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? There being none, next item is review of the minutes. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move we accept the minutes of, November 20th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next item on our agenda is a discussion relative to the tax rate classification. It's a public hearing. Mr. Baird?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members.
David, I want to thank you very much for the package you prepared for the board to review.
Thank you.
If you want to summarize it for us.
I will do it in summary form, best I can. So we'll just touch on a few points. I'm just going to go through by page, and I will be brief. New growth this year was certified at 514,000. So we've continued to have some very good growth, which is very helpful when it comes to the bottom line. On page 3, just for the new members, the requirements used to be a triennial valuation. The DOR moved that to 5 years, but in doing so, they also really tightened the rules for each year. So annually, we're basically doing a reval. So you'll see as we go through this, there are a lot of property classes that have changed in value, considerable changes as the sales have been really strong. But so just so you're aware, we're basically doing a reval every year at this point. On page 7, that chart is a good indicator of comparing the amount of sales versus how long things are on the market. So if you look at the blue line, you can see the volume of sales is pretty substantial. And the orange line represents how quickly they move. So whenever you've got that large gap there, that's a very good indicator of strong sales. Page 8, basically what you can find there in the third column over, the important thing to note is the increase in values. There's almost a $200 million increase in values townwide. Let's see, page 13. This table represents, since I've been here, in what the average increase has been. So right down at the very bottom, since we've been tracking this, we expect about $119 increase in taxes annually. Last year, as you can see in the red, was a very unique circumstance. We actually had a decrease in the tax amount. This year, we're not quite as fortunate, but it's also not as dramatic as it could be. Page 14, the last column on the right would give you a pretty good idea of where the values have changed. So we're looking at roughly 6, 7, 10% increase in value from the previous year, which is kind of consistent from the year before as well. So values continue to go up faster than we can track them. Page 15 in the right-hand column, where it says before shift in the blue, that would be the burden for the levy for each class if there were no shift. And if you look at the next page, on page 16, you can see maintaining a 1.54 shift, which is where we are now. The first column, the levy percentage, would show you what it would be with that selected shift. So you move about 10% of the levy away from the residential side to the commercial industrial side at that shift. On page 18, you can see that we've got about $1 million increase in spending in the levy for this year. Page 19, highlighted in the yellow, at 1.54, that would represent about $110 increase in taxes to the average taxpayer. And on page 21, these are specific properties for industrial commercial classes that would show you over the range of values Basically, what you're looking at for a change from what they were last year to those selected shifts, once again, the yellow would indicate the 1.54, which is where we were. Also included in this packet that you did not have in your online packet that was presented by Mr. Ward, there's a full table in here that shows you the percentages and the shifts allowed under the statute, as well as a community comparison that you can see what some of the other communities are doing, broken out by no shift and then a shift. And then you can see Clinton is highlighted in yellow. We're kind of at the middle now, where we used to be at the very top of that chart. So that's encouraging to see some movement there. On page 22, which is probably where this all kind of comes down to, you can see I've highlighted the 1.54, which is where we were last year, and where we would be if we left it alone. And you can see at the 1.52, which would indicate a 2% reduction in that shift. You've got almost some equity there. We'd be looking at about a $133 increase to the average residential taxpayer and about $141 to the equivalent commercial industrial property. So in a nutshell, that was very quick, I know, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain anything. If I missed anything that you'd like to go into more detail, I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, I think that's all I have for you right now.
Are there any questions from the board? This,
I have a question.
Certainly.
On page 22,
Yes.
we have the top row, shift rates, residential, delta. What is delta?
Difference from the previous year.
Delta is difference from
Difference
the
from the
previous
previous year, yeah.
Oh, is that an accounting term or?
It's actually an engineering term, I
It's
think,
an
but.
engineering term?
Yeah.
There's a reason we wouldn't say difference?
I'm an engineer. We can certainly take
No,
that
I
as a
don't-
recommendation for next year, though.
I don't care, no, I mean, but it just seems, you know, we're jargons to death in this country, I think. I didn't know it was jargon, I thought it was something. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
are there any other questions from the board? There being none, this being a public hearing, is there anyone here to speak on the topic, either for or against? Please identify yourself and the organization you belong to.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and town officials. For the record, my name is Roy Nascimento, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the President and CEO of the North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is a membership-based, volunteer-led organization focused on advancing the communities of North Central Massachusetts. We have a dynamic program of work and an impressive record of accomplishment, supporting local businesses and growing the economy. We see ourselves as a partner to the town of Clinton and other communities within the 27 communities that comprise North Central Massachusetts, working collectively towards the common goals of prosperity and a thriving community. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening on an important issue which impacts economic development and the future of this community. I would like to start by thanking this board for its work in recent years to improve the town's business climate, both for its existing businesses and for those who consider locating here. I'd also like to thank the town administrator, the director of the Office of Community and Economic Development, and other town officials who have made economic development a priority. We know that you have a difficult decision to make tonight as you set the tax rates for this next fiscal year, and I'm here today to encourage you to continue narrowing the gap between commercial, industrial, and residential, with the ultimate goal of working towards a single tax rate. We believe that moving to a single tax rate is the right decision long-term for the town of Clinton. As you know, Clinton is one of the few communities in Worcester County that still has a split tax rate. Your counterparts in Fitchburg have been gradually reducing their split tax rate and voted just last night to adopt a single rate. They recognize that the split tax system is poor public policy and was negatively impacting the community. While initially implemented in the 1980s to help residential taxpayers, It has had the opposite effect and actually hurts residents by driving out commercial and industrial taxpayers and discouraging investment in the community. We recognize that tax rates are only one factor in the economy. Energy costs, workforce, healthcare costs, many other things play a role. But tax rates are a powerful one, and one of the few things that's within the power of this board to impact. There's nothing you can do about healthcare costs, energy costs, the location, transportation, but adopting a more competitive tax rate and working towards a single rate is something that you can do something about. It would send a powerful message to local businesses and undo a serious mistake made many years ago that has left the town of Clinton at a competitive disadvantage. Making the commercial tax burden more competitive will better position Clinton to attract new business investment, retain existing businesses, increase tax revenues, and will send a powerful message that the town is business friendly. Communities thrive with a solid base of businesses, jobs, resources, and tax revenues, and these are the result of business-friendly policies and tax rates. I want to thank you again for your time this evening on this important economic development matter. We look forward to continuing to work with the town to help advance the local economy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor or against?
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Good evening to the selectmen, the town officials, and members of the public. As some of you are aware, my name is Christopher McDermott, and I serve as the Public Affairs Manager for the North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce. Like much of the region, Clinton is a community poised to benefit as the state's current wave of economic growth expands beyond Metro West. However, if it is to take advantage of this looming opportunity, the town will need to enact certain policies which signal it is open to a new investment and position it to compete with its neighbors. Perhaps the most important step that the board could take will be to continue moving towards a single tax rate. Compare with the municipalities which surround it, all of which have single tax rates. Clinton taxes its businesses at nearly twice the rate of its homeowners. For any business owner currently serving the community, this is a significant and frustrating burden. Aside from eating away at their own income, the policy also constricts their ability to reinvest those earnings and penalizes them for improving their properties. For business owners deciding which community to invest in, a split rate is often seen as a clear signal that the city or town in question views them with indifference. Though not the sole factor upon which an entrepreneur decides where to locate, a dual tax represents a serious disincentive. This all the more true in North Worcester County, where Clinton is one of the few, if not the only community, with such a policy. Meanwhile, many communities which have maintained or gradually returned to a single rate have seen a significant uptick in business. Last year, the Selectmen recognized this and voted to move, gradually, towards a common rate. You have made it a priority to cultivate the town's business community and welcome investors who wish to join it. Tonight, we ask that you continue this trend, as doing so creates jobs, supports local business, and expands the town's tax base. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with comment on this matter before the board? There being none, the public hearing portion of this meeting is closed. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move that we set the fiscal 20 split at 1.52.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Under discussion, I just want to say that I support the motion. We developed a policy last year to make incremental adjustments in the direction of a single rate. We've made significant progress over the last 5 or 6 years. There's been more than 1 year where we were able to reduce that split, and I think it's for the reasons that our two visitors just expressed, and for the benefit of our whole community. I think it's a good direction for us to take. Is there any other discussion?
Well, yes, having participated with Mr. Kerrigan and a couple of citizen members, I worked on the committee that looked at this whole issue of the split in the tax rate and its impact on businesses and attracting businesses and keeping businesses. And basically, after several months and quite a lot of study, we came to the conclusion, which I think is the correct conclusion, that it makes no difference. I mean, so I'm saying that these two gentlemen from the Chamber of Commerce, I think that the information that they provided is inaccurate. I don't think that a split tax rate drives away business, and I don't think it drives business out. The city of Worcester is going up in its tax rate split, and they seem to be attracting businesses left and right. So I'm not opposed to helping out the businesses, and I'll probably will even vote for this because the board did agree to that policy last year, but I'm not convinced that it makes one bit of difference. And I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mike. You've been fairly consistent over the years.
Mr. Chair,
Sean?
also serving, and I do appreciate Mr. Jaconski's consistency because that's something we can always count on. It was a frustrating process. I'm not going to rehash what we went through last year. For those of you who weren't here, there's a report, and I've written and spoken about this extensively. There's not a lot of anecdotal evidence to say that lowering the tax rate to X amount will bring Y amount of businesses. My belief, and I'd like to think I've been consistent since I've been on the board, is that we need every arrow in our quiver that we can get. We're putting $4.5 million into downtown. We're about to develop 8 acres of property on Sterling Street. And frankly, we don't have a lot of the advantages that people do list ahead of tax rate. I can't move us closer to 495. I have very limited power over job training. But what this board can do, and I think it's one of our most important votes, is to help shape this tax rate. So I do like that we're chipping away at it. I do like that it spreads the increase fairly this year, about 130 to 140 across both property values. And I don't want people to think, excuse me, that this is some kind of makeup to businesses or fairness thing. I personally, I just think it's good public policy. The taxes went down last year because we expanded our commercial, industrial, personal property base. It's plain and simple. And the more we do that, the more we expand the base, the more affordable it's going to be for everybody to live in this town, whether you own residential, multifamily, or commercial property. So I just think this is a smart vote for Clinton. I thought it last year. I'm going to think it going forward until someone shows me different. So I know it's not the #1 choice for businesses to come here, but as I said before, we can't afford to give anything away right now. So I'll be voting for this.
Anyone else? Just prior to the vote, I just want to make these points that 15 years ago, our split was 1.87. 10 years ago, it was 1.7. We are deliberating and voting tonight to make it 1.52. I think if we do that, we're sending a clear message to business development that the town of Clinton is serious about encouraging that development, and we've made a commitment to lowering this split to make it a better business environment. So is there any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor of setting the split for this year at 1.52?
Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous. Great.
It is great.
Next item on our agenda is...
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Beard.
Thanks, Mr. Bear.
Next item on our agenda is J. Myers Wave Seer LLC, a marijuana cultivation proposal for 75 Green Street.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Emmett Hayes. I'm a former selectman, former legislator, and currently still live in Whitman, where I served. I'm also right now the chair of the Loch Lord Public Policy Group, and tonight I'm here with our client Waveseer, who will be introduced in just a moment. I'm also here with my colleague Jay Myers, who I would ask to introduce himself for you.
Hi, I'm Jay Myers, and thank you to everybody in the town who's been willing to talk to me in advance. I am a member of the Public Policy Group. I'm an attorney. Prior to coming on board with Loch Lord, I worked for a while in the state legislature where I advised on a number of legal issues impacting cities and towns and legislation that the General Court was considering. I also do a lot of regulatory work, and that's largely what we'll be assisting Waveseer with, is making sure that as we look at state law, at the zoning bylaws, that we're making sure that we're doing everything in compliance. And we're here to answer any questions on that front that you may have, but we'd also like to introduce Greg and David from the team, as they're primarily the people that you want to talk to. So.
Gentlemen?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board. My name is Greg Blackburn. I'm part of Waveseer for about a year now, approximately a year. I've retired from local government in Southern Nevada. I'm 25 years in the regulatory and facilitation side and economic development. Assistant city manager, again, and then director level of the different job functions. When I retired, I worked with this organization while they were going through regulatory process, and was quite impressed with the quality of work they do. And my job is to help facilitate with local governments and help communicate and make sure that everything's compliance and help on each side. Lessons learned that we learned going through this process. And with that, I would like to introduce Mr. Dave Rosen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm a founder and CEO of Waveseer, and my name is David Rosen. I'll tell you a little bit about us and our company, and thank you very much for your time and able to accommodate us to get on this agenda. You guys have a PowerPoint in front of you. I'll just real quickly roll through this deck. It's about a 6-page one, but Waveseer was founded in 2014 when the first licenses were going out. It was Colorado, and then it was Illinois and Nevada. We hold currently 6 licenses in 3 states. We have a history of opening up these facilities and successfully. In Las Vegas, where most of our economic activity is generated, we have 5 licenses. We have 2 dispensaries, we have the farm, and we have the production facility. Over 150 employees. Since 2014, we have become experts in almost all aspects of cannabis, both in medical and adult use. By being vertically integrated, we have a distribution license, we have retail licenses, we have wholesale licenses, we invented our equipment, we have IP. We've been doing this for 5 years now. In 2017, United Food and Commercial Workers organized our company, so we're one of the few union cannabis companies in the country that have union jobs in multiple states. We provide free college, we provide pensions, we provide health care, vision and dental insurance, and real careers, training. We're an environmentally focused company. We believe in sustainable agriculture. We've only grown in LED lights. We've never used a high-pressure sodium light. We recycle and reclaim our water. We grow in a soilless environment called deep water culture, and we invented the automated equipment to be able to recycle and reclaim our water and grow with consistency. The Coca-Cola needs to be the same each time. As a company, our mission is to provide high-quality cannabis in full compliance with all state laws to customers in need, create new permanent jobs with benefits, good jobs, implement environmental safeguards on electricity use, packaging, and water consumption. We use best practices in employee management and high-tech manufacturing, and we operate state-of-the-art facilities with high levels of security. Our interest in Clinton, we think it's a real match. We have facilities in Maryland, we have facilities in Oregon. We've been siting and competing across the country. We really like Clinton because of this pro-business mindset and willingness to partner with us. The proximity to Boston and Worcester with a great highway access to the rest of the state. Waveseer's innovative production methods in a new industry fits well with Clinton's roots as an industrial hub. History of a strong workforce, and we've found the perfect location at 75 Green Street. The proposed project is a 48,000 square foot cultivation facility on the top floor, the 4th floor of 75 Green Street. We'll collate the extraction. In every state, they call this part of the business a different license. In Nevada, it's the production license. When I talk about production, it's the manufacturing of edibles or extracted process. So it's manufacturing. So we'll co-locate both the grow and the manufacturing in the same facility. This facility at 48,000 feet should be able to get us 17,000 plants in that facility, 40 to 60 employees with a water management system and treatment and full automation and high level of security. You know the facility in the town way better than I do, the 75 Green Street, but we've looked for a year in Massachusetts, and this is as fine a facility as we found. We grow in deep water. Deep water is not new. We didn't invent it. It's probably the best way to grow. It's a soilless environment. It's a nutrient-rich, oxygenated, soilless environment where the roots are chilled 15 degrees cooler than surface temperature. The LED lights you have light dissipation, so are automated. So these lights go up and down, sit 1.5 feet above the plant as the plant grows. The LED lights raise, and we don't have any light dissipation. We've had hundreds of lab tests under our belt, and the variation, we are as close to anybody as being able to predict outcome, both in yield, quality, and passing of the lab test. Nevada has probably the toughest regulation with lab tests, pesticides and methodology, bugs, mites, mold. Again, we have hundreds of lab tests under our belt, and we collect this data. So if we run a strain and we have a problem with it, we go back in the history, what happened when we ran it last time, what happened in that 8-week cycle. We believe in automation, we believe in forward thinking, and we're a sustainable agriculture company. We have intellectual property, so we've been in R&D for 4 years. We've practiced and practiced and practiced, and yes, we failed a lot of lab tests in addition to the hundreds that we've passed. We learned, and indoor agriculture is very difficult, and to scale indoor agriculture at the 10,000, 15,000 plants is really difficult. Ask any farmer, outdoor or indoor, bugs, mites, mold. Without the ability to mitigate those problems, you can't make any money. If you fail a lab test, your crop's gone. The benefits of deep water culture, it's the latest technology drip feed system. It allows 100% recycling of the water volume. We filtrate all of our nutrients out. We pull the old nutrients out, dry those out, recycle, reclaim it, bring that water back around. So while it takes a lot to fill up all these water tanks, we reuse it over and over again. Where the average grow will use 20 million gallons of water a year, we'll use about 30,000 gallons a year. No soil use, no discharge, fully controlled through automation technology. The community benefits that we've highlighted are 40 to 60 permanent jobs with benefits, including union benefits, including pensions and free college, hourly wage, vision and dental insurance, paternity and maternity leave, family leave, job training and certification, tax revenue to the local and state, new jobs close to home. You can walk to work. Continues the momentum of Clinton economic development by creating new local jobs. And then I set forward a timeline that's optimistic. With that, I'll say that we're true operators. We're not mergers and acquisitions people. We've been in R&D and practicing this for a very long time. We treat our plants and our employees with great respect, and we look forward to the opportunity of developing here. And happy to answer any question, and any member of our team is available to answer.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. How many parking spaces do you have at this location to accommodate employees?
I know there's ample parking. Carl?
Okay. Okay. All right. And the parking is behind the building, right?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, across the street, okay. Yeah, yeah.
All the way down to the Bristol housing.
Yeah,
All that land is our practice.
okay, okay.
The left-hand side or the north side of Green Street is our practice.
Okay, so you don't,
We probably use about 70 parking spaces for that area.
okay, so you don't foresee that?
Ample parking.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? I have a few, but I'll defer to.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When you say deep water, how deep is the water?
18 inches.
It's 18 inches, so that's considered deep water.
Mhm.
Okay. And what you're planning to do here is grow the plants and also process the plants?
That's correct.
So you're going to be extracting the flowers?
That's
Is
correct.
that the correct term?
That's correct. So 37%, no, you nailed it. So 37% of our business is flower,
Uh-huh.
which are the buds that we're used to seeing. 14% of that business is pre-rolls. People don't like to roll those up themselves, so that's about 50% of the business in the retail store is flower. The other 50% are a topical, a cookie, a vape cartridge, vaping. And the way you extract this, it's not cost effective to extract or to grow, cultivate for extraction. So it's called trim. Literally, when you trim the flowers, what you collect that, and you put that into very expensive equipment, and with heat, pressure, and solvent, you extract CBD, you extract THC, and lots of the other terpenes that are of benefit. You take that and you come up with a distillate. You take that distillate, it looks like oil. You take that distillate and you infuse these other products. It can be a topical for a pain rub. It can be a sublingual strip, which we manufacture, gummy bears, chocolates.
Okay, so you're going to be manufacturing all of those things?
That's correct.
Okay. And selling them to,
Other dispensaries, other licensed dispensaries in the state.
okay. So like the place over in Hudson and Leicester, the retail outlets for both medical and recreational?
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
I assume we have a checklist of information we need submitted to the board?
We do.
You have that, and I assume what you want from this board is a community host agreement,
That's correct.
and I'm hoping that you've obtained copies. This isn't our first ride around on this.
Right.
So I'm hoping that you have access to previously negotiated community host agreements, and you can come back to us prepared to
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
negotiate.
Yes.
Thank you. You don't need any action from the board tonight. So I want to thank you for coming in, looking forward to your submission, and I do want to say that of the presentations we've heard, initial presentations like this one, yours was very informative and seemed very professional, and helped me at least understand some of the process. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
very much.
And this, if you ever have a chance to come out to Las Vegas, it is, once in a while you get stuck at a conference for 2.9 nights in Las Vegas, and if you would see or tour our facilities or any of the other states, it's impressive to see. We spent 4.5 years building this out. But thank you very much for your time tonight. Thank you for accommodating us. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item tonight is Joanna Osborne, the Parks and Recreation Commission, Savage Field Ball Field lighting replacement, and Philbin Park splash pad replacement. Joanna?
Okay, hi. All right, let's see if
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Joanna, thank you.
Hey. That's, I'm the smartest one here, so. Let's do what it works.
Was it something I said? Everybody disappeared. Okay, so, I don't know if I should move this. So, my name's Ioana Osborne. I live at 180 Main Street, and I am also the Vice Chair of Parks and Recreation. You want to introduce yourself?
Eddie Verrier, Parks and Rec.
Where do you live?
Oh, whatever.
Oh, whatever.
We'll find you.
Yeah, I know. You're easy to find, Ed. He's been around a long time. We both have. It's been good to serve with you there. So tonight we're coming forward because we have two items that we want to share with the board, courtesy to let you know what's going on. The first one is the splash pad at Philbin Memorial Park. So this has had a lot of normal wear and tear over a 15-year period, and this is an archaic piece that's been coming to a grinding halt, not due to lack of maintenance on our part, but rather its a natural lifespan is right on time. It's approximately a 10 to 15-year life expectancy. The earlier splash pad models are breaking down now. So the installation was prior to my board appointment, and I even asked Ed prior to his as well. We weren't aware of any long-term plan for overall repair or replacement from the onset, but we've inherited now the result of it actually starting to fail. Specifically, the base of the pad is sinking, and so crevices will catch the little feet of children as they widen just enough, which of course injuries are certain to follow, and we want to clearly prevent that. It's not possible to simply replace single elements that have broken down because the plumbing underneath the surface is also in need of repair, and in order to access both the plumbing and the elements, the entire pad must be ripped up. So essentially, there's no easy fix to this. The broken parts, to fix broken parts without destroying the entire splash pad. It's just going to be a one-and-done thing. And this is a heavily used water feature, as you well know. Many consumers come here specifically for this element, in the recreation element in this particular park. So it's something we have to approach with a plan, and it's time. We are asking for $180,000 to fix this. It's what is going to be required to get to this point. The other thing that we're looking at is the athletic lighting at Savage Field. So originally, what was meant to be part of a Phase 3 renovation at Savage Field, once Phase 1 was complete and the skateboard park was revitalized, we were going to be saving the athletic lighting for the very end. And as you well know, we did the initial updates to the Savage Field. We knew that the athletic lighting updates would be the most expensive portion of the renovation project, so we wanted to save them for last, and we were hoping that we could raise as much support for that effort toward the end. However, time has not been on our side, and the said equipment not only has become unfunctional, it has also become outdated and doesn't meet the requirements of current safety codes, which were only recently updated. Thus, the actual poles, which must be replaced in order to go forward, which we had not counted on initially in our plan, makes our timeline that much shorter and the cost that much greater than anticipated. Currently, both fields are heavily used by private organizations which rely on the lighting for their ball game seasons, namely the Little League field, where much work by volunteers and private donations have been invested to maintain the area, along with the municipal caretaking that we provide, and the softball field, which is constantly rented out by adult leagues who primarily use the fields for night games, which of course require lighting. So again, these lights are not working mostly, and the poles, we originally thought we could just replace the lights themselves and keep the poles, but the poles are no longer to code at all. We have to remove them. Essentially, in order for either field to have safe working athletic lighting this upcoming season, the town would need to step in and provide funding to cover this expense because our budget does not. Originally, we were going to try and raise money to deal with this, but we're at a point now where it's got to be done. The silver lining here is Musco Lighting, which is the leader in athletic lighting as a product, uses substantially less electricity, it reduces light pollution, it can be monitored from a satellite location, and has pinpoint capabilities for precise field lighting, as in point and leave it. It also has a 25-year warranty and virtually little to no maintenance for the duration. The proposed warrant amount for lighting repairs to both fields is around $510,000. We've been kicking this around for a couple of months. We don't have an exact figure yet because we're relying on Russ Carlstad to get us an actual quote for both fields. We're looking at 4 light poles for the Little League field and 6 poles for the Savage Field facility. We kind of came into this meeting with a little bit of, we're doing this it's like we're on a moving freight train with this. But we really wanted to come to you right now when budget season is approaching and give you the heads up on this for that reason, so.
Any questions from the board?
Yes, but when you said the lights aren't working, I mean, I seem to recall driving by Savage Field this past summer and fall and seeing people playing baseball at night with lights on.
Right.
So what do you mean they're not working?
I'm going to defer to Rosa, our director, because she's got a much more hands-on approach to this. Rosa, why don't you join us?
Rosa Carrot, 537 High Street. So the lights have systematically broken down, and because the poles are outdated and they're wooden, we can't actually fix them until we replace the poles.
Are the lights not going on? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so some of them just keep going off, and we legally can't go up there to fix them because they're on wooden poles. So the softball teams have made it work this season. The Little League, we had to rent special lighting to be able to help them finish off this season.
Now, and I don't mind to be difficult. I'm not against the lights. But when you say, are the poles rotting away? Are they in bad shape, the wooden poles?
They are, at this point, they are a safety issue.
They are.
Yes.
Are they a
Yes.
safety issue because they're rotting away? Or
They've been
because
there-
some group
they've
passed
been there so many
a
years.
regulation that said, we don't like wooden poles
Oh,
anymore?
they've been there so many years, and even for somebody to go up there in a lift and work on them, they're not safe. We checked them, we went over the whole field and so forth.
Okay.
Again, I just want to follow up on that, Mike, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the poles are a hazard the way they are? Or are you saying that the leagues that utilize the field have rules about wooden poles? In other words, have you contacted an electrician with a bucket truck and he refuses to go up and work on the lights? Because it's a building code violation?
So over the summer, I believe, something was passed recently where wooden poles are no longer used for lighting in athletic fields for safety issues. Russ can speak to this to more detail. That's why it costs so much, because we're not just looking at replacing the lights, we're also needing to replace the poles in order to replace the lighting.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but I understand that that is a league issue, and the type of groups utilizing the field, the Little League can't have wooden poles. It's not a building code violation. My understanding is it has nothing to do with state law or building code issues. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm asking you to clarify that.
I would ask Russ Carlstead to speak on this more clearly, because I was told from him that it's a facilities issue with code, with the wooden poles being wooden. And that's why we can't replace the lighting, because they're on outdated poles.
Okay, what I was told by Mr. Carlstead a couple months ago when this topic first came up is that if you're going to replace poles, because the Little League has rules about metal poles and wood poles, they have to be replaced with metal poles. But nothing was said that the existing infrastructure can't be utilized.
Well,
That repairs can't be made on the existing lights.
if the poles have to be replaced, it would be silly to replace them with wooden poles. The metal poles will be there forever. They're secured to a base, and they're made especially for the lighting.
I'm not disagreeing with the wisdom of
Okay.
replacing the lights and replacing the poles. And if you're replacing the poles, you're replacing them with metal. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm asking why the ones currently there can't be repaired enough to get through another season.
Well, I guess part of it is that we've been going with the recommendation from Director Karlstad that it's not like we're looking to create more expense for ourselves either, you know? I mean, it's a good question. I'm not sure that we're certainly not, you know, being led by dumb sheep here, but we're definitely, you know, knew that we were going to eventually have to address this, and we took it at face value that he was telling us that this is now the time. So we were looking at the idea here that it actually came to us rather suddenly in September, that suddenly, okay, the lights aren't working, we have to address this. And then, you know, obviously we're heading into winter, spring is coming, what's going to happen in the spring, and do we have to go ahead and actually do this now and start setting everything in motion, because obviously there's more lights out than there are working. And so we're looking at it as a board, and we don't have the funding to be able to handle this kind of major overhaul. So the process got started. We started these conversations in September. We did go down and look at the lighting on the field right after our last board meeting in November, and it was suggested to us that we come before you and let you know now the status of things. It would have been helpful if we maybe had Russ with us tonight, so we could have had this conversation all at once. But I think we had also knew that he had come here at your last board meeting to address this. So I maybe just assumed, unfortunately, that conversation already happened. And I apologize for that. I didn't
Well, the
realize.
conversation with Russ was we were going over capital improvement projects for the next 5 years, and he brought it to our attention. I'd love to go back and see it, but I don't think he mentioned that we were talking about $750,000.
Well, the splash pad is something that's been on our radar for a while. We have to deal with this because we cannot open it again, given its current state. When the lighting came up as a result and we started realizing what was going on, we said, well, we really need to come to you and start talking about this because of the nature of it. And so we saw it as an opportunity to talk about both items. Now, we also thought, well, maybe we should do our due diligence and get this all tidied up and wrapped in a nice, neat package, but the emphasis on coming to you sooner rather than later was the advice we got. So we are, just to be honest, the approximate numbers here were because we hadn't actually had a full quote yet about how much would it actually cost to replace all 10 lights. We were waiting for that for our next meeting, but at the same time, we didn't really understand the nature of why we had to come so quickly to you, but we figured it would be best if we just got the topic out on the table and said, here we are. So we can get that question answered for you.
Bad news doesn't get better with age, so
That's
thank
true.
you very much for bringing the information
Yeah.
forward.
Mr. Chair, if I may, at that last meeting that Russ was here, he did speak to the lights down at Vale Street being in need of replacement. And we can check the minutes. He did state that, in his opinion, he thought they were a structural hazard. And I agree, there is also a youth rule that is coming into, or has come into effect about mandating no more wooden poles. But my understanding is there's two separate, that rule does exist, but there's also our Director of Facilities' opinion that the poles, he's even entertaining the fact of taking them down this year, even if we do not have a replacement. He
I don't
he's
recall
discussed
that
that.
at-
He didn't say that at
Okay.
the last meeting, but he did say that in his opinion, he doesn't believe that those lights are structurally sound. In addition to structurally sound, the electrical work in them, from my understanding of it, is so old that the electrical work itself is a safety issue and is causing pause for electric companies that have been called in the past to come replace the lights that are not working. That's why I believe in the past, you've had to set up temporary lighting because an electrician will not replace the lighting on the existing pole. So that means, to Selectman Jacoinski's point, yes, the lights are on, I see them, but every time a light fails now, that light's going to be out permanently
Band-Aid,
because as of, I know conversations with Russ, that they've had a tough time. Maybe there is some rogue electrical company that will deal with these lights, but they haven't been able to find one yet with any of the local contractors in town. So the issue is really, it's twofold. It's one, the electrical issue, where moving forward, every time a light on those poles fails, we're not going to be able to replace them based on the way the way the electrical work is on the light. And then separately, there's also, because it's a wooden pole and they've been there for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, however long
Easily.
they've been there. There's also our director of facilities feels that there's also a structural integrity concern that he thinks we need to address sooner rather than later. And I think I want to thank your board for coming to us, as Chairman Conley said, bad news,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. We appreciate you coming to us sooner if we want to try to deal with this quickly and try to get some sort of a resolution. And I appreciate you guys communicating these concerns with us,
To
this early in
piggyback
the
on what you
process.
said too, is that, where the bird's eye view here is, we also want to get Savage Field finished. We still have monies that are dedicated to getting the parking finished and the walking path. And really, up until recently, we didn't realize we still had some say in that. And that was part of where this whole thing came from. When we realized that lighting was needed to be fixed, and we're like, wait a minute, we still have that money, we have some say in that matter. So we want to get that dedicated and done. And actually, once this lighting is in place, I mean, you don't want to be disrupting the parking that's put in place just to put in new lighting. You want to get the lighting put in first, then do the parking. And that was another reason why we wanted to get this like wrapped up and figured out.
And another thing that I think complicates us a little, because you guys have leftover money from the phase one. And I know in the past, you had tried to reallocate that money towards this concern, and through going down that path, we've discovered that it's not a possibility.
No.
So we know that we can't do that, but I do think what we decide to do moving forward, that leftover money is obviously going to, like, if we're going to do something to invest in either the lights or the splash pad, obviously that existing amount that's on phase one is going to have to be repaid and set to zero for us to,
It's actually still under our jurisdiction to do with what the voters said to do with it. We have.
Right, but I'm saying if you're realistic about getting cooperation from other parts of the town.
Obviously a bigger discussion. Yeah.
Exactly, like that, in order to realistically expect the parts of the town to invest further in that, we would want that existing money to come off the books. That would have to be part of, in my personal opinion, for me to cooperate with any sort of a future investment.
And we want to do everything above board. It wasn't like we wanted to come and do something wrong.
Sure.
But we also didn't expect this to happen the way it did either. We were kind of waiting to do everything in the right order, and then all of a sudden, these issues are coming up. And certainly the splash pad, we did not expect to have this issue. But in terms of the timing of it falling apart, I guess that was going to be normal, so.
Nor the replacement of the actual poles. We didn't
Yeah,
anticipate
that was something else that came out of left field that we had no control over as well, and we're sort of subject to that.
Go ahead.
Well, so procedurally, this has to go to town meeting. We're talking about a special town meeting, an annual town meeting, debt exclusion, the last one, phase one was a debt exclusion.
I would say
right?
that at this moment, we're not formally asking for this. This was to be put on your radar at the moment, and we still even haven't done our own due diligence to actually put this into a formal request. It was more so to say, hey, this is happening, we wanted to give you the benefit of knowing about it, and actually, we appreciate your question, too. So when we go back and we talk to Russ as well, we're going to say, hey, what about that? And
But
figure out.
annual would be too late for
I'm sorry,
baseball
what?
season. Annual town meeting would be too late for baseball season, if it's in June.
I think so,
I mean,
yeah.
that's
well,
when, that's the money's allocated, so you
Correct.
still have to do the project.
Yeah,
I don't know,
Well-
how long- do you know how long it would take? Okay.
no. And, yeah, he is the one that really has the better handle on that. Yeah,
Okay.
The process takes, no matter what you wish and what we want to do, takes time.
yeah,
Even if we were to schedule a special town meeting
which we had considered.
and a debt exclusion vote between now and the annual town meeting, by the time it got approved and you got the money available for design and engineering, you would not have a completed project in time for the spring. It's
Truly
just
realistic, yeah,
not a realistic expectation.
right.
And two things I want to comment on is, I'm unaware of the determination that the poles are a structural hazard. If they are, that's important to know, because you may not even be able to utilize the fields till they come down.
Yeah,
If they are structurally unstable, which I'm not aware of, that's an important public safety thing to consider. Of taking down the poles, where's the money coming from for that? And is the field even going to be safe for people to be on if it's structurally unsound? So I'd like to, we need all these questions answered.
correct.
I do want to, we all have the rights to our own opinions, but the money that was appropriated at annual town meeting to renovate Vale Street is there. It's appropriated and it's available for the purpose that it was allocated for. We can make a policy or a recommendation that you turn that back to the town if you're pursuing this, or you can retain, hold that money over to continue the project that it was appropriated for, but it's not just your call.
Right, no,
Any project of this magnitude goes through the permanent building committee.
Sure, absolutely. We
And
were under
they-
the impression that we were not able to put it towards anything else but what was voted for to be done.
Right.
So,
Right, but that doesn't, because now you have a new need, it doesn't mean that you can't continue with that project.
that project.
That's a political consideration that you have to make in presenting your request to various town boards and the general public.
Okay.
So the process that I see forward for you is to get answers to all the questions, define what it is you want to do, draft articles for annual town meeting.
Right.
You're not prohibited from filing a petition for a special,
Yeah.
but I would suggest to you that the likelihood of success there is pretty remote.
Yeah.
So you have plenty of time to get your ducks in a row. You need to have answers to the questions that were raised here tonight and any other ones. And you need to gear up your PR machine for $750,000.
Sure. The other thing about the instability part, I don't think it's unstable that they're standing there. I think it's the part, to your point, Ed, was the part about them being fixed or repaired, when they be serviced. That's the part where they are unstable to be serviced, I think. is
Well,
what-
it might not be a bad idea, maybe at a future meeting, if, depending on Russ's availability, we can have, because he did briefly speak to it, but it was in the midst of a bunch of other capital improvements. So maybe we'll schedule out some time with him, because it was my impression that there were two separate things. One was the electrical work was inadequate,
Yeah.
or outdated is a
Yes,
better word.
definitely that.
And that there was also, inherent structural concerns with the poles themselves, just being wooden and just the wear and tear over the years of them being there, that there was also that concern as well. That was my impression, but we can talk to Russ about that to get more clarification.
Does anybody here remember when those poles went in on the Little League field? Any idea what year? No? I played on the first softball team on a softball field, and we put in poles. Standard Sign did a lot of work, and I think the telephone company, I believe, donated the poles.
I can ask my dad.
I think the very first set of lights on the CSA field was, the work was done and the poles were provided by private parties. The town did not invest in those. I believe both sets of lights, the Little League lights and the current lights on the big field, were sometime during or after my tenure on the Parks and Recreation Commission.
I would say in the 60s,
70s.
70s.
70s. I know the Little League field was, and I'm pretty sure the current lights on the big field were post-70.
Okay.
Could be wrong, but just, I recall having discussions about lighting those fields.
And basically, I mean, if the poles are, they've lived out their lifespan and they should be replaced, then they should be replaced.
Right.
I was just asking because, I mean, if we're replacing the poles just because the Little League likes metal poles now, I think we should tell the
No.
Little League to take a hike.
No, we're not doing that.
No, no, no.
But if they need to be replaced, then
Yeah. I think that's where we're
they
at.
need to be replaced.
Yeah.
It's like
We're
anything
coming
else.
from a safety concern.
Nothing lasts forever. You
Right.
use it.
Yeah.
I do want to thank you for taking the initiative to come here and have this conversation with us, because budget season is developing, and warrant articles are a major part of the budget.
Yeah. No doubt, yeah. Well, we
Is
want
there
to,
anything else from the board? Anything else from you guys?
well, no, just congratulations, Ed and John, for your new, being here. Positions, I'm sorry, I'm
And thank you for
stumbling.
your time.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
as well,
No,
and
thank
happy
you.
holidays.
Thank you guys. Yep.
Next item on the agenda is administrative business, late night closings. The following establishments are requesting late night closings for Saturdays in the month of December 2019. Clinton Turn Vereen, Crystal Cafe, Liberty Tavern, Ringside Cafe, Spruce Street Tavern, The Simple Man Saloon, and Polish American Club. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve late night closings for Saturdays in the month of December 2019 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up is old and new business, Mass Works grant contract. Mr. Duffy is here recommending approval, oh, he's not here, he's recommending approval of the contract for a 1.5 million grant award from the Mass Works program that will be used as part of the downtown improvement project. And before we start discussion on that, I just want to make an announcement that we are all cordially invited to join Secretary Michael Keneally, myself, and the Town Administrator Mike Ward for a 2019 Mass Works Infrastructure Program grant announcement, Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, 11:30 a.m. here in the Town Hall. And before we move forward with this discussion, I just want to ask if Selectman Jacoinski, as the leader in that High Street lighting subcommittee, if he would be prepared some brief remarks on behalf of the town for that announcement, if he's available.
Well, I'm a little concerned about the term brief. But I would be happy to provide,
Thank
to
you.
be there.
Okay, Mike, do you want to talk about the grant, or?
This is, Mr. Chair, just the grant contract, which would be the 1.5 million from the Mass Works program that will help supplement the town appropriation for the downtown improvement project. So this is just paperwork we need to get back. This money will be spent first before the town money, and then we'll, take whatever we need to of the town appropriation.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve Mass Works program contract of $1.5 million to be used as part of the downtown improvement project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. FEMA pre-disaster mitigation grant contract. Mr. Duffy is recommending approval of the contract for a $99,930 grant award from FEMA with a $33,310 local share for a feasibility study and engineering design for stormwater improvement to reduce the impacts of flooding in the downtown area. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, can I just clarify, do we know we have a funding source for that 33?
I think
310?
Mr. Duffy is going to recommend some of the economic development funds from
Okay.
his office. So NIPRO has done some work, initial work. This is all kind of in conjunction with work with NIPRO. The culvert that's coming through town here, we've had problems. There's been some backups and flooding. So NIPRO's done some studies that has then caused some further review needed. So now this grant here will help build upon that. And that I think Mr. Duffy feels that, with the town trying to, NIPRO has spent money, dollars, and if the state will be spending dollars, and if the town could take some funding from his economic funds, that we could all kind of partner together with the state, private, local partnership to try to address the problem.
I agree wholeheartedly. I would move that we approve a contract for $99,930 grant award from the Federal Emergency Management Agency with a $33,310 local share for a feasibility study and engineering design for stormwater improvement to reduce the impacts of flooding in the downtown area.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I just have a quick question. So we're putting up 33,000 and the federal government's putting up the 99?
Right.
So the whole thing is going to be about $132,000. Okay,
And that's feasibility.
yeah.
Any other discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next item under old and new business is a review of proposed filming policy. The board began discussions at the last meeting on a proposal submitted by Selectman DeVault relative to a policy and permit process for companies looking to film television and movie productions in the town of Clinton. Does anyone have anything to contribute to this ongoing conversation? At the last meeting, I think it seemed that there was not much concern with most of the proposal, except some of us had reservations about how we police the process of addressing local vendors, local businesses, their needs, and how that could be met. And I know I had the concern, and I think
I did.
Mike did too, that it's important that there be some kind of, or I felt there should be some kind of way of enforcing that cooperation, but I'm very, very hesitant to involve the town in determining level of funding for that or arbitrating disputes between the parties. So I did think about it, but I didn't come up with language myself that would address that concern. I don't know what anyone else thinks about it.
Well, I think that's very amusing because I did the same thing and came up with the same results. So, I mean, I don't know. The town of, not the town, the town of Devens, is that a town? That's
Air.
Air.
Air
It's
was-
part of, okay. I mean, this has worked well for them?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a good starting point. At least we have something.
Yeah, and what I can do is, we don't have to do anything at this meeting. I can reach out, or what I can do is try to add to this with some multiple different options of, so this is just, I have one policy here. What I can do is try to come up with a couple different versions, one that is a little bit less intrusive than maybe this, that can have some options of how, for example, like one of the things I know we were talking about was how are we going, how the business is going to define what their average weekly income is. And what I had in here was 6 months of revenue. Perhaps there's other ways that that calculation can be made. So maybe what I can do is I can even reach back out to the economic development director at AIR, just to tell him we're trying to massage this portion of the policy, and what are some examples, or how have they proceeded, how they had the most luck in coming to an agreement and setting minimum standards with the agreement that, with the expectation that they have for the filming company to the businesses that are affected by any street closure. So I could take an action item to kind of to expand on this for the next meeting, and then that maybe if there's more options, then some of the selectmen can say that they like this, they don't like that, and then maybe I can kind of start to piece something together that's more palatable for everyone on the board.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you, Ed.
here's my concern. I mean, what business is of ours, what a company charges or wants to charge the filming company for being shut down? I mean, we have the Waves here, they want to put a manufacturing, marijuana growing and manufacturing facility in Mr. Dunn's building. And so they were here discussing things relevant to that process as it affects the town and them. But we have no business in what what rent is being charged. It's not our business.
It's a fair point. So
I mean,
if
what do we care about?
if a filming company came before us and said they're looking to shut down High Street, and then they said, we do not plan to compensate any business for the 5 days that we're shutting down High Street at all.
Right.
Exactly. So my point is that we do have some role, because their level of cooperation with local business has an effect on our decision as to whether we are going to close the street down or not. So all this policy is just trying to kind of set the ground rules up front with the filming company, to say, this is what our minimum expectation is if you plan on shutting streets down in the town. That's my only thoughts on this, is that I understand the reluctance, but I think it's unavoidable if we're charged with having that authority to shut down a street that's going to affect business. We have to have some skin in the game to make sure that those businesses get some sort of compensation. If the other choice is that we just don't ever shut down the streets for businesses and don't allow filming companies to come here, and I like the thrill of having some things filmed in Clinton. I think that it's nice for the town, and it just takes a little bit of work and hopefully a good policy to make sure that we can in the future also have films come in here, or filming companies come in here, shut down streets, use properties. We made some money off of it, in addition to, I know they utilized the parking up at the high school to the tune of about $40,000. They renovated that building that they filmed out of is in much better shape now than it was before they filmed. So there are some benefits to these companies coming to town. I just think that we have to find some way to make sure that the businesses don't get adversely affected with the street closures.
Mr. Chair.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, if a filming company went to Mr. Dunn and said, we want to shoot in 75 Green Street and it had no impact on public property, then they're welcome to negotiate whatever deal they want. I think what Ed's talking about is, if we're shutting down a public street, it's going to affect more than one property owner, and we should look out for them. They should know that we're on their side and we're going to take care of them. To what degree, yeah, the policing, I am a little nervous that it's going to take up more bandwidth on a staff that's already overloaded, and so I'd be curious to see what AIR does, who, if they have someone who negotiates these things, who the liaison is. I'd be curious to see what other towns are doing, and so I thank you for helping with the research on this. It's a good idea.
I think we have to do something for the reasons that were just mentioned, but I'm just very leery of how we affect that, because there's two sides to that. If it's too open-ended, the film company or whoever's coming in making the request can be held hostage to creating successful agreements, but at the same time, we could end up with a situation like we had, where the film company made all kinds of promises and didn't fulfill any of them. They paid the school and they paid the town, but to my knowledge, a lot of the vendors that were complaining about not having adequate agreements got nothing, in spite of those three gentlemen coming here and promising us that they would take care of those people.
And so I can see where we would want to have some minimum guidelines, but as to the specific agreements, isn't it up to the company to say, okay, my lawyer will talk to your lawyer and we'll come to an agreement? And if they don't, I mean, all I'm worried about is we'll be bogged down with merchants and businessmen in here saying, close them down, they didn't pay me the amount of money that I said, and the film people saying, oh, yes, we did. I mean, it'll end up being,
I look forward to Ed's
yeah,
offer to,
right. That's all I'm worried about.
I'll see if I can expand on it or make it a little, yeah, I'll work on that. I'll work on that section of it. And I do agree, there, especially the first couple times through this policy, there probably will be some trudging through mud, but I would rather do that at the beginning of the process with the filming company than doing it when they only are here for 2 or 3 days and we're fielding all these complaints and we really don't have any leverage with them anymore. So I'd rather kind of go through those headaches early upstream than towards the end, which kind of happened to us this last time.
Yes.
or we could, based on the bad experience with this film company, decline to participate with any future
That's certainly an option.
film companies.
Any film companies or just?
Any, no, any.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's what I think we should say. I could care less if any actors ever come here again.
I said it a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but if that film company ever came back here, I would refuse to participate, or grant them a permit.
That's right.
And maybe we can save ourselves and the community a lot of headaches by just notifying the state film board that we're not interested in film companies coming to home. I'm not saying, I'm just saying that's an option that's available to us.
Just don't do that after I put 25 hours into this policy.
No, we won't do that, but it is a thought. I mean, and I did think of it, it's funny, because I did think of it today. I thought, why don't we just tell these film companies, go to Lancaster, go to Bolton, have a great time.
Yep.
I'm resisting a gazebo joke here, so just, can we just move on?
I'd love to get a gazebo in Central Park. Okay, next, is there any other old or new business for tonight?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so I bring to your attention, the board's attention, okay, right? Mr. Kittredge has been in contact with the Zekas Group, the auctioneer company out of Worcester, okay, and they are suggesting where we're late in the year and close to winter, which we're into winter, and they're suggesting an early spring auction, and possibly we're gonna have more that are in the land court now, we possibly have possession of before the spring. So I think the board will go along with, have an early spring auction for the house property we do own now, with the addition of a few more by the spring.
Mr. Buzzell, we make that a motion, that the board...
Yes. Suggest we have an early spring auction.
Right.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Any other old or new business? Committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Okay, any goals and objectives discussion this evening? There being none, all those, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
I second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Where's my computer at? Hope we're off the air, right?
No, no.